All right. So this will always be very simple. As I explained, there's two parts to it. We'll talk about the topic to get the mental juices going. And then we'll have a conversation about what it is that's bothering us. I'll be discussing a topic for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then the rest of the hour, we'll be diving into what's distracting us and keeping us from being present. So the topic will be replayed on YouTube. The conversation will never be recorded. But being this is our first conversation that we're going to be sharing, I want to make sure that the foundation is set and we're all comfortable in the conversations that we'll have later. The foundation of anything creates the ability for sustainable growth. Stronger the foundation, greater possibility for growth, more likely it'll last. So looking at nature, the deeper the roots, the greater the tree. So the first rule is confidentiality. So confidentiality is key and most important. This means that what is said on Zoom stays in Zoom. So for us to get the most out of this, we need to be transparent, and transparency takes trust. So if you break the sacred trust of this place, you will be eliminated and blocked access to ever return. So, and there's zero exceptions to this rule. Now, this is not a support group, because support groups enable the problems people are facing and keep them stuck. The purpose of this group is to provide a safe place to help transform our stories to empowering stories. The stories we can be grateful for, not disempowered as if it happened to us. Our experiences happen for us. So even though we may not see the value of the experience, there's a lesson and opportunities to be grateful. So the third is come from love, not judgment. So we cannot love and judge simultaneously. We have all of our traumas, and no one's trauma is worse or less than ours because yours is maybe older or newer. Does not make yours more painful than anyone else's. And all they are is just different. So what's painful for you is what's painful for you, and what's painful for someone else is what's painful for someone else. Please avoid comparing or judging someone else's experiences. I know that that's kind of where our ego steps in, and we'll, whatever, we may think things, but please don't vocalize that, well, she's got it easier, he's got it easier, or whatever. So the idea of us just getting over it really takes doing the work. And when I mention doing the work, I mean, whether it's this conversation, whether it's if you pray, you meditate, whatever that is for you. We all have our own kind of remedies for our own issues, for our own challenges. So we're not coaches here. We're here to help each other heal. So we'll help each other heal through communication. I'm a huge believer in the power of communication, most importantly, the communication with ourselves. So we're listening with the intention of being empathetic and ask each other questions that maybe we have not considered. So opening up perspectives that we've not even looked at. So we do not want to tell someone what they should do or how they should do it. Only you know what's best for you, and no one else does. So stay curious, stay focused, and stay in love. An exception may be if someone asks for help, but we do not volunteer help. Transformation happens in the self-discovery, not being told how to think and what to do. Number 5 is share only what you feel comfortable sharing, and video on is option. I strongly encourage you to get uncomfortable because that's where your greatest transformation will happen. Growth happens outside of being comfortable and being vulnerable. So sharing more than you feel comfortable will open access to healing, and doing it on video will open up the healing even more because it's more courageous to do it that way. So it's courageous to share your regrets, your shames, your guilts, and painful to withhold your destructive thoughts in you. So it may be painful to let it go, but in the long term, it's more painful to keep it in. So you don't have to share. You can heal through observing other people's stories. So as we listen to stories, as I'm sure you know, we find ways to relate to that person, relate to that story. So you may see you may see your challenge inside of someone else's story. The conversations we will share are in confidentiality, are not recorded, which I've already discussed. So these are sacred and not to have the possibility of being shared or leaked outside of our space. Each share is limited to 3 minutes if there's 8 people in the room. So eventually, when this grows, there'll be different rooms. At this point, there's only a few of us. So this rule is more applicable for the future. But 3 minutes if there's 8 people in a room, 4 minutes if there's 6 people in a room, and 6 minutes if there's 4 people in the room. Ideally, we want each person to share twice. So each chat will have 4 to 8 people, each chat group. You don't have to share again, but you can transform again through listening and just being a great listener. Number 8 is be here, not worried about what other areas of your life, not on your phone, not trying to multitask. You deserve the opportunity to heal, and so does the person that's speaking. The loving attention we give each other will help the healing process and cause the healing to happen sooner. Collectively, we can do much more than individually. Please make this time and space the priority when you're here. Number 9, be in a quiet space where no one can hear our conversation. So if you're somewhere where you would be afraid someone would hear your stories, please move or choose not to be on the Zoom call. Last is have integrity. So please follow the rules or do not participate. So if bending or challenging rules is fun or a habit for you, this is definitely not the group for you. And then the bonus rule is teamwork makes the dream work. So we work together to hold each other accountable for following all the rules and hold each other responsible for healing ourselves. So if we're doing this effectively, we will experience challenges, uncomfortable moments, and times where you may want to shut down. This is just your body avoiding doing the work that needs to be done. Now, why do you think healing is so important?
It gives us a chance to grow. That's my interpretation of it.
Is there anyone else on here that would, I don't know, I'm trying to see how many people are on. There's 2 of us, okay. So is everyone just on your, okay, so it gives us a chance to grow. So when you say it gives us a chance to grow, what do you mean by that?
Okay. So, and my definition of growing is continuing to move forward. Unless we face those things that hinder us from growth, be it heartbreak, financial, anything that we battle in life, our tribulations, our trials, if we don't overcome those, if we get stuck in or stagnant, then it hinders us from growth. I like to say what my grandmother used to tell me, anything that's not growing, because our earth is a system, right?
Right.
It's a living system. If you're not growing and you're stagnant, then you're kind of like taking up space,
right.
And potentially, earth itself will notice this energy is not being transmitted back out. I'm sorry, that was my son. But earth will because we notice things within our body that's disturbing or wrong. Go see a doctor or whatsoever.
Right.
So why not earth? Why not our system that is emitting energy through us? We're not giving the same energy back or positive energy back, then it will find a way to rid the waste, correct? So I believe.
So by healing allows you to move forward. Is that what you mean?
Yes, in so many
Right.
ways.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. When I say healing, what I mean, and my definition is just my definition, there's no right or wrong. When I say healing, I mean healing emotionally, and it's kind of like healing physically from an injury or surgery, but it's not as obvious to you or someone around you. So there's no physical scars, there's no stitches we can see, there's not ointments or creams that we can put on bandages we can wrap that we can wrap ourselves with to help the healing process and keep the wounds clean and prevent infection. So a lot of the times we don't know how much we're injured or how many injuries we have or know how long we've been injured. The emotional injuries limit our capabilities to be successful, to be happy, and to be in loving relationships. They can limit our self-worth, limit our confidence, limit our willingness to be a contribution to society. They unknowingly control our lives until we start to do the inner work to discover and heal the injuries. They do not know how powerful they are until you do the work to heal them. Now, once you heal them, it may feel like you have a new experience of life, possibly better than you imagined. Now, the proverbial monkey on the back or carrying the world on your shoulders or your chest feeling tight is minimized, is gone. So you're going to feel lighter, breathe deeper, and you're going to smile a lot more. So genuine smile is not that fake smile you give to people to make them think everything's okay. A fake smile is like motivation. It looks good from the outside, but it's not sustainable. A real smile is like inspiration, comes from the inside, and it's just sustainable. So we're all intelligent enough to know the difference between fake and a real smile. So do not fake it till you make it with your smiling, because no one is impressed. What a lot of people do is they bury their injuries. And when I say injuries, I'm talking about their emotional wounds. Knowingly or unknowingly, they bury them to get through the moment. So like a soldier at war that makes it through the battle to survive, to fight another day. They may tell themselves that they'll worry about it later, but right now they have a mission to fulfill. Then they fulfill that mission, but they don't go back to the moment of the injury. So they limp through life trying to tough it out. Some people think, particularly males and alpha females, that you just have to be tougher than the injury. And if you let it bother you, then you're weak. Which is, there's a big gray area there. There's some truth in that, but you cannot let everything that happens in your life control you. But eventually you're going to get so wounded from your lack of emotional maintenance that it will control your life. So this is a complete side note and something that I've learned, it's been beaten in my head over the last year, is that our brain and our nervous system is designed for survival. It's not designed for abundance. So when you heal the wounds, you don't have the sensitivity. So just go a tiny bit deeper in that. If you just think about, like, if you burn your hand on a stove, your nervous system reacts. That's what our nervous system is designed for. So when we're wounded, we're more in a reaction state. So instead of healing ourselves, you may take your wounds out on your loved ones. You may self-medicate with drugs and alcohol, buy things that help you feel better, eat emotionally, or be overwhelmed with anxiety and depression. Now, this is what adults do. The injuries that control us are the wounds that we got when we were most impressionable, and our brains were starting to develop the ability to tell the difference between truths and facts. So truths are in your imagination. It's what you thought you experienced, and facts are what really happened. So can you think of a time when you were a little kid and you swear something happened a certain way, but your parents tell you it didn't happen or it didn't happen the way you remember it?
Do I remember a time?
Yeah, is there like, or maybe I know you having kids, your kids may have been like, hey, mom, remember when? And you're like, no, that isn't how it happened.
Yeah, I've had those experiences, yes.
Yeah, probably more. You probably remember more with your kids because you had more of a brain power then, or you have a better memory.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah, kids get wild with their imagination and make things
Mm-hmm.
up, and you're like, no, that's not really what happened. Especially, I guess, if they're fighting, and you know that they're definitely
Yeah.
imagination involved in that. So when we're 7 years old or younger, our perceptions were distorted by our imagination. So I'm not saying that all that you remember didn't happen the way it happened, but I'm sure it was not as dramatic as you thought it was. So if you have kids, as you do, you know what I'm talking about. Life seems like, with kids, it's either a celebration or it's a tragedy. Like there's that gray area. It's like they're on polar opposites, seem like on everything. And it probably was for us too. And it can be one of those tragedies that have been controlling us. A realization I had in the summer of 2016 was I felt I was unwanted by my family growing up. I didn't know when I created the story or what happened, but my best guess is that my parents or my older brothers, because I'm the youngest of three, didn't want to play with me, and I created a story that I was unwanted. So dissecting the story a little bit more, I realized that my dad was the only one that did want me. And when he died of cancer in 2012, I started to search for someone who did want me. And that's part of the reason why I moved to Houston, Texas, was to find someone who wanted me. Now, is there any kind of, I call it emotional maintenance, but ways that you heal your traumas now? Like, do you meditate, do you pray, or you just tough it out?
No, I allow myself to sit with my pain or, the heartbreak. If I experience heartbreak, I allow myself to go through those emotions, whatever my body needs. If it's rest, then I rest. I just listen to my body, and
Do what it says.
I don't stay stuck in that place. So,
That's good.
I'll come out of it. But whenever it, comes up again, I give it time. And so that's how I deal with it. Because I know if as long as I acknowledge it, then it won't be suppressed.
Right.
And by it, doing things like that, it could come out in my behavior. Nah, I just, yeah.
If you don't heal yourself, or if you don't
Well,
really do the work.
if I don't acknowledge my pain or
Right.
anything that I'm going through, then I know that it'll come out in a behavior.
Sure.
That's just my belief. That's just what I believe.
I totally agree. And I'm gonna explain a little bit more about something like that in a little bit. But yeah, you have to. So in Buddhism, and just one of the, I think, just kind of the foundation of Buddhism is that, or the Eastern culture, they talk about you have to learn to suffer. So whatever that is for you. So like, but if you like, kind of what I heard from you is that if you avoid something, eventually it's gonna just show up, and it's going to show up probably not at a time you want it to show up. So you just manage it and deal with it in the moment, or as soon as you can get to it, so that you don't have to be triggered by something later. Did I hear that right?
Yes, that is correct. That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Okay. So I'm going to share with you a tragic story of why healing is so important. And I'm sure if we were to trace other tragedies, we could find the root cause of why people became so violent and killed. So I'm from Northeast Ohio, which biggest city in that area is Cleveland, Ohio. So there's a serial killer by the name of Anthony Sowell that lived in East Cleveland. In 2009, this is what he was convicted of. He was, so they found these bodies in his house, outside, around his house, whatever, on his property. So he had 11, he was accounted or with 11 counts of sexually motivated aggravated murder, 4 attempted murders, 2 kidnappings, 5 rapes, 5 attempted rapes, 11 abuse of corpse, and 11 counts of tampering with evidence. Because I would imagine the tampering with evidence was the abuse of corpse. So one of the sons of the woman that were found in this guy's property was interviewed by the local news. In his emotional interview, he mentioned how awful it was to not have a mother and how vitally important it is to have both parents to raise a family. The same guy who poured his heart out in an interview for the news is now a husband, a father of 3 kids, and as of June of this year, a murderer of a husband of 2 boys. So all over some road rage because the father of 2 bumped in the rear bumper, but did no damage to his car. Now the son, who did not heal himself from his mother's murder and proclaim that children need both of their parents, has destroyed his family and another family with the pull of a trigger of a gun. So imagine how many crimes could be prevented if people were willing to face their emotions and do the proper work to heal themselves. So what if the guy who murdered 11 women tried to murder 4, raped 5, had done the work to heal himself, over 20 families would have been directly impacted by one person healing himself, which we could speculate could be hundreds of thousands had he just done the work. So this is an example of why healing ourselves is so important. Not that if we don't heal ourselves, we're going to become criminals, but healing ourselves could prevent us from taking tragic actions to ourselves or others that may kill the enthusiasm for life in us or them. So that's kind of an extreme example, I think, of kind of what you're talking about. Like if you just handle what you got to handle, you're not going to express it later to those that you care about or those that you're surrounded by. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. That's exactly. That's a terrible story. Mm.
So I'm going to stop the recording now, and then we'll go into the conversation.